So we're joined all the way from Atlanta by Holly Reid, the masterplaybook.com, published author of Teach Your Child How to Fish, CPA, graduate of NCA&T. We thank you so much for taking some time for us. This is our personal finance class here at Velma Jackson High School. I've got a room full here with me, and we're recording this for all of our friends in Madison County schools. My good friend, Coach Robin Mercer, over at Madison Central, Ridgeland High School, Germantown High School, the Academic Options Center, and our YouTube channel. So thank you so much for taking some time for us today.
Yes, thank you for having me. I think what you're doing is phenomenal.
Well, I think what you're doing is phenomenal, and I want to talk about all that. But just give us a little background because you're originally from Atlanta, and all this is on your website. You have such a cool story. You came from a great family, great parents, and they worked hard, taught you a lot of great things. But you bought your first home at 23 after you went to NCA&T there in Greensboro, the largest HBCU in America. So just give us a little bit about your background and how you really weren't exposed to financial principles as a child.
That's right. So my parents did what most parents do, I think. They try to teach you everything that they want you to know or think you need to know in order to be successful. And so money falls in that category. So my parents, I'll say this, my dad and my parents, they demonstrated a lot of money habits. My dad would give me and my sisters, I'm the youngest of four girls, he would give us a lot of money advice, but it was money advice like, Holly, don't spend all your money on this, or Holly, you really need to be saving. But what was missing from that advice was the how and the why, right? So it all sounds good, but if you never slow down and take the time to start practicing all of this good money advice our parents and adults give us, then it's all for nothing. Because as soon as you start making some good money, it goes out the door and you start doing exactly what our consumer culture teaches us to do, and that's to spend above your means, all the things, right? And so in my situation, it was no different. I knew in high school I wanted to major in accounting, and the only reason I knew that is because my high school introduced me to a bookkeeping. They had like a bookkeeping class and what they call the Academy of Finance. I don't think that program exists anymore, but it started exposing me to careers in banking, things you could do with an accounting degree. And so that helped me narrow down real quick what my next step was going to be. I knew I wanted to go to college. It was almost an expectation in my family just because I'm following what my sisters are doing, right? So all my sisters went to college. That's going to be the next step for me. And when I started researching colleges, there were two programs that had accredited accounting programs or business schools. That was FAMU and it was A&T. And so the more I started talking about those two options, the more people, surprisingly, in Atlanta, I met who graduated from North Carolina A&T in Greensboro. And long story short, because you got to have money, it's other factors that go into where you decide to go. But two of my sisters went to our church affiliated school in Salisbury, Livingstone College, which was literally like two less than 2 hours away from A&T. And that's how I decided on A&T. I would be close
Oh,
to
cool.
family if I really needed to get to them or if somebody needed to get to me. And then the whole fact that the business school was accredited and known for their business school and graduating at the time, the most black CPAs in the nation, it was almost
Yeah.
like a no-brainer.
Yeah. Now, obviously, we want to talk about your career crossroads you had. But first, I
Yeah.
do want to talk about your experience at HBCU because that is where a lot of money mistakes start to be made for high school students. And again, it's not that they're stupid. It's not that they don't care. It's just that they were never taught. And
That's
look,
right.
and your family is a perfect example. You had great, loving parents, but they were not educated on a lot of things that people know now. And I'll be the first person to tell you, black communities were left behind on this for years.
Yep.
But
Yep.
now there's more and more resources, there's more and more opportunities. So the excuse of nobody ever told me this, I don't think that's good anymore.
Yeah.
If you don't learn, it's because you weren't paying attention.
That's
So
right.
you went to NCA&T, largest HBCU in the country,
Yep.
over 11, 12,000 students. So it is very easy to get lost in a big pine, to be a little fish in a big pond, and to start having those pressures come from all directions as a young college student to try to keep up with everybody else. So as a young lady that went to a large school, Talk about some of the things that you saw and that you're seeing now that young people are making when they go to these colleges and they say, "Hey, I have all this money all of a sudden. I'm getting offered this credit card. I'm getting offered this. I'm getting offered that. Let me spend it."
Yeah. So first I got a lecture. So when my parents dropped me off in Greensboro, I think my mom handed me maybe $300 and she was like, "This is it. We don't have anything else. Don't call
Mm.
home asking for more money. You got a place to sleep. You're on a meal plan. You figure it out. This is $300, so use it wisely, right?" So first I got a lecture and before they left to set the expectation that there was no money to be calling back home for, right? But when I got on college, I will say this was probably my first taste of making any financial decisions on my own, like being independent. The stuff we all want to experience. We want to be free. We don't want to listen to anybody. We think we know everything. And at that age, you know a little something, right? But you don't know everything. You don't know what you don't know. And so you start seeing how other people are managing their money, your peers, your friends, right? And you try to think you can be like them, but you don't know their situation. You don't know who's funding them. You don't know where they're getting their money from, right? And then there are the credit card offers. So let me tell y'all, as soon as you turn 18, because the government, everybody has your social security number. They know your birth date. They know when you turn 18. You're gonna start getting all these offers in the mail. And because I went to school away from home, they were coming home, but on college campuses, they had literal tables set up every week in our student union or in different public places around campus where they were literally offering us pizza parties, t-shirts, a free water bottle to open up to open up a credit card. Now, the great thing is it's now they aren't able to do it as overtly now, but they still find a way. They may sponsor a program and then somebody is there to, talk to kids about opening up a credit card. And what the research has found is that we people are often most loyal to whoever they open up their first card with, meaning the very first credit card. I have a friend who can attest to this. Her very first credit card she opened up in college. 20 plus years later, she still has that credit card, right?
Wow.
Yeah, exactly. Now, I'm not one of those, but I know I probably kept my first credit card a very long time. But the goal is, they are asking you to spend your future earnings. They are inviting you to build this relationship where you become bound to them because they know that we aren't Americans specifically aren't well educated, don't have a lot of practice with using credit. And so what they'll do is they'll offer you a lot of incentives up front. And the incentives may look like, oh, you get 2% cash back with every purchase. Or the incentive might look like you're going to get 70,000 sky miles when because now you're dreaming about, oh, I can take a trip to London. I can take a trip to New York. I can take a trip to Atlanta for 70,000 sky miles, right? So they're giving you all these gifts and trying to incentivize you to sign up with them. But what they know is that you're going to be late. There's going to be a time when you don't pay the bill on time. And guess what? They're going to hit you with a late fee. They know that every time you use that card, you may not pay the balance off in full. And so then they're going to charge you interest, right? Which makes whatever you purchased more expensive than the original price that you paid for. And it just can become a real slippery slope. And I do this for a living, right, Greg? You know this. So I talk to college students, I talk to high school students across the nation. And on average, when kids go to college, they not only graduate with, 20, 30, $40,000 plus in student loan debt. On average, they also graduate with two, three, five, $6,000 in credit card debt, right? And so you're graduating with a promising future. Somebody's getting ready to pay you a nice salary, we hope, right? But you're already indebted to somebody else. That money is already spoken for because you got to keep paying them every month. So it could be a slippery slope. But I know for me, that was one of the lessons, hard lessons I had to learn. And you may feel it while you're in school, because I signed up for the credit card thinking I had self-control, thinking I was only going to use it in case of an emergencies. And then I turned out using it to buy my friends pizza. I was using it to buy my homecoming swag. I was using it to go on road trips, to go up to Virginia with my friends, to go on beach weekends with my friends. And then before you know it, you at the max of the credit card looking for another one to bail you out. That's not what you want to do.
Yeah, and it's crazy. I went to Las Vegas this summer, and the daggone flight attendant for the last 15 minutes of the flight tried to sell the whole airline or the whole cabin a, a credit card, and it was just they were just all this stuff, and I was like, man, it's just too good to be true. I mean,
Right. And guess why she was
I
doing
know he was
that?
just I know he was doing his job, but at the end of the day, I
Yeah.
was like, come on, now,
And
man.
you say that, but there's another reason why he's doing it. It's probably because the airline will incentivize or pay that person a bonus based off of the number of, applications that are filed that came off of that flight. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
So
yeah.
yeah. So they find their ways to get to
Now,
this. It's inevitable.
Now, I think that's important to talk about what you face in college now, but you actually did a great job and you bought your first home at 23 years old, which is unheard of. But you talk about this on your website. You made it very public that even though you had done good to create income to purchase a home at 23 years old, you were not prepared with what was coming when a recession hit and you found yourself unemployed.
Yep.
So talk about that because especially these teenagers, they say, I'm going to do this and it's going to always be like this and I'll have this money and I can do what I want.
Yep.
And I'm going to tell you, it never goes that way.
Right, that part. So like I mentioned, so my dad would give us money advice. So one of the things he would consistently say is he wanted each and every one of us to move out of his house into our own home, right? And so he nailed that into us year after year. And so my oldest sister did it. The sister right next to me, she did it. And so I just watched how they did it. And the way that they did it is once they graduated from college, they came back home and stayed for a year or more, right? Or longer, just depending on how long it took them to save up the down payment, right? Then purchased my first home, boom, moved from my parents' house into my own. That's one thing a lot of people don't do. A lot of people, young people, do not do because they are itching. They've had that freedom, on college campus, maybe living in an apartment off, while they're a student, and they don't want to go back to following their parents' rules, whatever. So that's key, I think, in understanding, as long as your parents, your family are willing to allow you to come back, take advantage of that to stack your cash. All right. So fast forward, I'm in the house. And so when you move into your house, you want everything immediately. And the reason you want everything immediately is because that's what society shows us that we can have, right? That's what our culture, our consumer culture, teaches us to live above our means, to get whatever it is we want, to go into debt doing it. Because guess what? You're going to live a long life and you can worry about all of that later. Well, that's exactly what I did. I was furnishing the house, getting the house furnished, buying new appliances, going on ski trips with my friends, buying laptops and computers and technologies and big screen TVs, and doing all the things. And then for me specifically, the dot-com bubble burst. And what that simply means is that the economy started to tank, right? And when the economy started to tank, the public accounting firm that I worked for, they started laying people off. And guess what happened to me? I was one of those people. All right. And so I just wasn't prepared. I wasn't, I felt so ashamed that I had not practiced the very things that my parents had told me to do. But the reason I had not is because nobody ever slowed down to show me exactly how to do it, right? Nobody sat me down and said, okay, Holly, let's look at your paycheck. You should save X amount. Or let's look at your paycheck. You're spending way too much on your car payment shouldn't be more than this amount, right? And so because no one ever took the time to show me how to do it, I was just spending willy-nilly however I wanted. And it wasn't until, and the fact that I was an accounting major, a whole accounting major, shows you another thing is that they don't talk about this in school settings. They don't talk about this typically in college settings. The college degree is training you how to run the numbers, manage other people's money. It doesn't talk about managing your money,
Yeah.
right? And so here I am, a whole accountant, and I'm still not prepared when it came to being laid off. And so one of the most humbling things I had to do was I when I lost my job, I had a car payment, I had student loan debt, I had credit card bills, I had a whole mortgage, right? And so luckily my parents were in a position. My mom was like, just bring your bills over here. So I went to my parents' house every month I would lay out my bills and they would go through them. And let me tell you, you don't want your parents in your business like that. Because she was really like, why is your credit card so high? What did you spend it on? And because so many bills or statements had passed, I could no longer see what the original transaction was. I couldn't even
Wow.
tell her. I couldn't even tell her what I had racked up, right? What I had spent the money on. But I promise you it was on some foolishness. I promise you it was on clothes. It was on, stuff that doesn't matter at the end of the day, right? And so when she did that, when we were going through that exercise, I was embarrassed, I was shamed, and this was all while I was trying to find another job. And so it was in that moment that I had my aha moment. My aha moment was, you will never catch me in this situation again, right? I need to start doing something differently. And so I started reading everything I could, following all the financial gurus at the time. Back then, it was Dave Ramsey. Back then, it was Susie Orman. But I was just taking it all in and trying to apply it to my situation until something clicked, right? Until I could start seeing progress. And because of that, that's when I was able to claw my way out of over $30,000 in debt.
Wow. That's incredible.
Yes. And once I did that, so I pretty much paid off everything except my mortgage. And once I did that, I started preaching the debt-free gospel. I wanted everyone I knew, everyone I didn't know to experience what it felt like on the other side of a car loan, on the other side of a credit card, payment. Because now your money is your money. Your money is no longer spoken for. You don't owe anybody else. So that brings a lot of freedom. That brings a lot of choices. And that's when I started really, investing hard, and living my best life without going into debt because now I understood the power and the freedom of me deciding where the money was actually going to go instead of paying people from past decisions.
Yeah, and then that also led you to become an entrepreneur
Yeah,
of the Master Playbook, where you speak to parents, you speak to kids, you speak to teenagers
that's
about
right.
these financial principles. And I think it's so funny, and I tell this joke all the time because I'm a big fan of Jasmine Sullivan. But she
Yeah,
has the song where she says, "I'm going to move to Atlanta, start a business, and be rich." And I'm like, look, she's a great artist and all, but that is so unrealistic. And I think, unfortunately, a lot of young people think it's just a it's a magic trick. And
yeah,
you've got proof that you can get to that point. You don't have to be a celebrity. You don't
right.
have to be, you don't have, and honestly, you don't even have to have a college degree. We've got kids here that don't want to
Right.
go to college, but they want to work in fields that can still pay them a lot of money. And
Yep,
then the funny thing is, just because you're making a lot of money doesn't even mean you're wealthy because you can be managing that money poorly.
that's
So
right.
just talk a little bit about that journey and some of the things that you teach and that you see because look, even small things. And look, I am far from a financial expert. I will never be on your level, but even I can say things like if you're not at least putting in the matching amount of a retirement account, that's just simple stuff like that. You're outside of your mind. If you don't
Yep,
put just a little bit away in deferred compensation, that you'll get on top of that retirement, it's crazy. Now,
yeah,
our grandparents could depend on such a security. That's going to go away. So if you don't take some small steps to set yourself up, you're gonna be the one saying, "Man, I wish I'd have listened to this when I was tw a teenager."
Yeah, I agree with you. So I think the biggest mistake, and it's not it's not your fault, right? I'm talking to the students. It's not your fault because you're young, you feel invincible, you feel like you have a long life ahead of you. But it's staggering if you go and look up your classroom is primarily black men, young men.
I have seven in here, five men, two females.
Okay. All right. So from a man, I want you to go look up the average lifespan of a black man. What's the average number of years that they expect black men to live, right?
It's
And
about 64 to 68.
right. It's about 64 to 68. The age where Social Security kicks in, and like you mentioned, it is at risk, right? They have increased the retirement age to like 67, right? And so if they're not even expecting you to live long enough to take advantage of Social Security. So one, we want to crash that statistic. We want to dismiss that statistic. The other statistic says that Black wealth is expected to be $0 by the year, I think it's 2053. Is that right? I think I got that right. So if it's 2025 now, somebody do the math real quick. How many years
That's
is that?
28 years.
So 28 years. So we're gonna make it easy. We're gonna round it up to 30. I want you to take your age today. How old are you today? 16, 17, 18, however old you are. So if you're 16, I want you to add 30 years to that number, right? 30 years from now. So that would make you somewhere between 46, 47, 48. That statistic is speaking to you. They talking about you. They are saying that by the time you are 46, whatever money you're making, whatever assets you have, whatever income you're bringing in is going to be worth $0 because you will have equal or more expenses. So just like you have a mortgage, you bought a house. Yes, the house is an asset, but you're still paying on it every month. So you have a mortgage on it. So the house may be worth $200,000, but if the mortgage is 150, then that asset is only worth 50,000, right? But same with the cars. The car, you'd be like, "Oh, well, I could sell my car." Well, you're probably paying on the car, right? So they're basically saying your assets, that your expenses will be greater than or higher than your income and the assets that you have, right? And so my whole mission is to blast that statistic, right? Is to make it untrue. And the way that we make it untrue is by having conversations with you, having conversations with your parents, having conversations with educators like Greg, who are taking the time to make sure you all just understand the basics. The basics will take you far. There are so many shiny new things, being introduced into personal finance, digital currency, cryptocurrency, all these things. Many of these things are very risky, meaning they probably aren't safe places to put your money, but there are just some basic foundational things that are proven that will, be true forever and ever. And that is what Mr. Greg is here to teach you. That is what I'm here to expose you guys to, because the greatest asset you have on your side is time. Because you are young adults learning this information, that is going to be your greatest asset. The sooner you lock it in, the sooner you have your aha moments, the sooner you start taking action and thinking about your 30-year-old self, taking action, thinking about your 40-year-old self, your 50-year-old self, your 60-year-old self, and beyond. That is when that's when these statistics go away. But it's up to you. You've got to take the information and do something with it. Not just take it, understand it, regurgitate it back. But no, you need to go open up a savings account. You need to go open up, have your parents help you open up an investment account. When you turn 18, you can open up your own investment accounts, right? So now's the time to learn about these things. Now's the time to get into these online simulators so you can practice and make mistakes in these investment stimulators and things that they have. They call them games, right? But they are excellent tools for you guys to learn and see how things work. So when you start making real money, you can make your money work for you.
Yeah, and I know we don't have time to go down the rabbit hole today, but just because you're putting money on a Cash App card doesn't mean that you are having any type of bank account. Because when you want to actually make these real purchases you talk about, they don't care about what's in your Cash App. They want to see real bank statements.
Right.
So
You
that's
got to get in the game. And the way to get in the
yeah.
game is to be in the financial system. So whether that's, a major bank or a credit union in your city or state, those are both excellent options to start practicing getting your money in those accounts, seeing how it works, watching your money grow because of compound interest.
Big time. Well, I do have some questions from the students, and I'll get to as many of these as I can.
Okay.
I like this first one. This is Leah Smith. She wants to go to Howard University and
All
wants to be an
right.
attorney. She's one of our volleyball players and cheerleaders here at Velma Jackson, and she asked, "How do you know when getting a credit card is beneficial and when to use it?"
Yes, good question, Leah. So when okay. So, like I said, when you go to college, a lot of people are very eager for that financial independence. And eager means, oh, let me get things that only adults have, like credit cards, right? And so a lot of people are going to be eager to get their first credit card. If you're one of those people, I'm not mad at you. You can get the credit card, but you need to be disciplined with it. And if you get a credit card, I actually recommend the first kind of credit card you get is a secured credit card. And a secured credit card is basically like getting a credit card with training wheels, meaning it acts just like a regular credit card, but the company is going to ask you to put down a deposit, right? Because they don't know you. You practicing, right? And so I want you to practice in a safe environment by you put a deposit on the card and then you use that credit as if it was being funded from the financial institution. And once you have established a good track record, usually it takes anywhere from 6 to 12 months, then they will convert it to a regular credit card, right? But that's my recommendation so that you get some good practice on using credit in an environment where you're not going to fail and make too big of a mistake. Or if you make a mistake, it's going to be easily fixable, something you can quickly recover from. All right. And always read the fine print. Read the fine print. Because another incentive or marketing tactic that credit cards use, they'll say, hey, sign up for our credit card and your first 12 months of purchases, we will give you a 0% interest rate, right? And so you just want to be weary because at some point that 0% interest rate expires. And then the interest rate may go from 0% to 21, 23, 32%, right? Far more than what you may be able to afford, but as long as you're paying it off every month, you're good to go. So the thing about credit, it's a powerful tool. It's a great way to start building your personal credit. But my recommendation is your first credit card should be a secured credit card. So Google that, look that up, and you can go to bankrate.com to look up secured credit cards.
All right, I just got time for two more. This is
Okay.
Jarvis Lyles. He's a senior, also one of our football players here at Velma Jackson, and he asked, obviously, it was a pivotal moment when you were laid off. But if you had not been laid off, would you have still been an entrepreneur?
Yes, I think so. Uh, I think so because here's why I think so. So when I was laid off, well, okay, let's talk about before I was laid off. Okay, so before I was laid off, there were still so many different challenges in the corporate world that I was working in, right? They were putting so many different hurdles in front of employees just to make sure that they had the cream of the crop, the tip top, the person they wanted, the yes person, they wanted the person who would just by any means necessary do what they needed them to do. And I had already started feeling some of that rub, like against, I'm really not going to stay till 10 o'clock at night looking at these files. Like I'd already started experiencing some of the negative elements, even though the money was good. And so for that reason, I think I would have transitioned to something else, right? So even if it wasn't that layoff, I am 100% positive I would have experienced a layoff somewhere else, right? Somewhere along that trajectory. And I anticipate you guys will too, right? There are so many companies, if you just read the headlines, there are so many companies consolidating, right? Mergers and acquisitions. There are so many people who they were doing really well, but then the product or service is no longer in demand and they start laying people off. I almost expect it to happen in everybody's life at some point or another. It's a point of life, and for that reason alone, knowing that it's going to come, you don't know when it's going to come. You should prepare for that, right? And so, at some point, everybody needs to prepare for it. Hopefully, that
And then
answered
look
your
at
question.
COVID.
Right.
That's the number one layoff in my lifetime. I was laid off from, luckily, it wasn't my full-time job. It was a part-time job where they laid off the entire staff and there was nothing I could do about it. So
Yeah.
that could happen to anybody at any time.
Yep. Absolutely.
I got one more. This is Taylor Grayson. She's in 10th grade. And she asked, how did you save the money to where you were able to get a house at 23 years old?
Yeah, so hopefully I answered that with the whole year. Once I graduated from college, my parents were open to it. I came back and I moved back in with my parents for a year. And for that year, with that good job, I saved up a lot of my paychecks, right? So not only was I investing a little bit, but I was pretty much stacking my cash and I knew what I was looking for, right? So even though I didn't have all the money yet, I was doing market research. I was looking at houses for sale. I was looking at how much they cost. I was looking at what kind of down payment would I need? What kind of down payment assistance programs are there? Would I need to put down 1% of the house, 5% of the house? And then once I had that in order, once I had that percentage saved up, then that's when I started. Like I asked a realtor to, help show me around. This is the area I want to live in. The bank tells me how much I can afford based off of how much money I was making from that job. And so that's how I did it. I went and lived at home for a year and stacked my cash.
That's awesome. Well, we're almost out of time, and we thank you so much for joining us. We're going to have you back in the spring to speak to our seniors.
I would love
But
to.
a couple things before we go. First of all, themasterplaybook.com is your website. All types of resources on there. That is your handle on YouTube. You got some great videos on there as well, not only for teens but for parents.
Yep.
Because that leads me into what I want to close with is, and I mentioned it, and I'll say it forever that Black communities, rural communities were left behind for decades when it comes to financial literacy and financial education. But now the information is out there online. The information is out there with people like yourself. And I was telling this bunch before we went online. I have lost count of the amount of students that have come back to me and said, "I wish I would have listened."
Mm,
Because I'm not the expert by any means, but I've been able to bring in people like yourself. I've been able to talk about some basic things. Because look, I understand when you're 15, 16, 17 years old, you're just worried about playing sports and having fun in high school. I get it. We've all been there. You were
yep.
there. I was there. But not knowing these small financial things as you matriculate through high school, as you decide to go to college, you decide to go to work, whatever. I always say if you don't know the basics, you are going to find yourself locked out of that dream that is sold to you on social media.
That's right.
So, how important is it to even just get a little bit of this knowledge while you're in high school to prepare for that next step?
It's so important because let me tell y'all, being poor is expensive. That sounds crazy, right? It is expensive to be poor. It is expensive to struggle, right? Everything costs more. It seems to cost more when you don't have the money, right? So if you just start practicing some of these small things, saving consistently, not spending on these frivolous things just because TikTok. That's the other thing. Like social media is influencing you guys to the utmost. Social media is basically telling y'all where to spend y'all money, right? Look at all the I look, I fall prey to it too. What's this? what was this? What's the lady on the reality TV show? She had these body butters. Look, I got it too. I fell prey to it too. So you just have to watch that, right? Be conscious. When you raise your consciousness of the marketing tactics and the lies and the myths that are constantly being pumped to you, whether it's through these reality shows, whether it's through social media, then you can make a different decision, right? Then you won't be sucked in like a zombie and just doing exactly what they want you to do. With the information that Mr. Greg is sharing with you guys can really set yourselves a solid financial foundation and put your future path on the way to being future millionaires, right? And you don't have to be the future millionaire that has 10,000, 100,000 followers. You want to be the quiet millionaire, right? You don't want everybody to know the money that you have. Most wealthy people are very quiet. Most wealthy people, you wouldn't even know it, right?
Yep.
So yeah, so just try to take in as much as you can. If you have a job now, start putting these things into practice. And then you'll see how much easier it's going to become getting some of the things that you want in life.
I love it. Well, again, we thank you so much for joining us. All your information, themasterplaybook.com. Also, that's your handle on YouTube and all your social media platforms. And we thank you so much for taking some time for us. Holly Reid, all the way from Atlanta, the Master Playbook herself. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you guys for having me. Have a great day.
I talk to you soon, my friend.